Because we in these hot-ass Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot-ass mess, honey. So yes.
Congresswoman Crockett denies she was mocking Abbott's disability. She says she was referring to his use of trains, planes, and automobiles to transfer migrants around the country. She should not have made the comment at all, but Joy.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking when I saw this about, where was the outrage from Abbott when Trump was doing this?
Written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Maybe that's what I said.
Well, that was about a reporter named Serge Kovaleski who suffered from a condition that restricts joint movement. And he had interviewed Trump many times in the 80s. So he was basically making fun of the guy's disability. And I didn't hear the outrage then. Not that she's right or wrong.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about her, she was looking for a way to say hot mess and Hot Wheels.
Yeah.
And, you should leave that stuff to the comedian.
Welcome back to AllStarBuzz. Thank you for joining us. Before we start, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We are on our way to 10,000 subscribers. Now, let's begin. So here's what went down. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett stirred up major controversy after making a bold and, many say, offensive comment during a public appearance. While speaking at a human rights event, she referred to Texas Governor Greg Abbott as Governor Hot Wheels, a nickname that critics quickly labeled as a direct jab at his disability. For context, Governor Abbott has been paraplegic since a tragic accident in his 20s, when a falling tree left him paralyzed from the waist down. The Hot Wheels comment wasn't just a passing joke, it hit a nerve. Social media lit up almost instantly, with people debating whether Crockett was simply being edgy or crossing a serious line. And when you make a statement like that on stage, with a cheering crowd, it's hard to walk it back. What's especially striking is that Crockett is known for her fiery delivery and unapologetic tone, but this time, even her usual defenders hesitated. The backlash wasn't just from the right. This moment opened up a rare opportunity where criticism came from all sides, including some unexpected voices on the left.
I agree with that because I respect her, but it's just never okay to mock someone's disability, whether you're Donald Trump or Jasmine Crockett. He was paralyzed from the waist down, Governor Abbott, and when he was 29 years old, a tree fell on him. It's a tragedy, whether you like him or not, that's just off limits. And I think it raises this bigger point that we encounter in the Trump era where just because he or some people like him go low, if we all go low back in response, then you just end up down in the mud. Things don't get better then. And right now, there's this whole question, like, should Democrats fight harder? Should they name call back? Should they shout? I think they should be strategic. I should know, though, she made the joke before about him, Hot Wheels, numerous times.
And what did she say that time?
There was like 3 or 4 examples. Referred to him as Governor Hot Wheels, said he was rolling up to the White House, said he... I
think that...
Not a good idea.
Yeah, you just don't mock people with disability.
What made this situation explode even more was Jasmine Crockett's response to the backlash. Instead of offering a direct apology, she claimed her comment wasn't about Governor Abbott's disability at all. According to her, Hot Wheels was a reference to Abbott's policies of transporting migrants across the country, using buses, planes, and even trains. She said she was criticizing what she views as a cruel and calculated move to stir up tension, especially by targeting cities led by Black mayors. She insisted that calling him a hot-ass mess was aimed at his immigration policies, not his physical condition. But here's the problem. Not everyone bought that explanation. Critics pointed out that the timing, the delivery, and the tone of the joke felt personal. It didn't help that she'd previously made similar comments more than once, referring to Abbott as rolling up to the White House. So her denial only added fuel to the fire.
You don't mock people. I was going to say, you just don't mock people at all. And I admire Jasmine Crockett. I do think she's an effective messenger. I think this was a mistake. And I think when you make a mistake, you have to own it. You have to do that because it gives you a lot more credibility when you do that. I did not know that Governor Abbott was a paraplegic. I had no idea that he went around, and the people in the audience all started shaking their heads. I didn't know that. I didn't know he was, a tree fell on him when he was 26. A lot of his photos are taken making from the step down, from the waist up, but she is the representative from Texas, so she very much so must have known that he is in a wheelchair. And so I hope that she does the right.
Instead of diffusing the situation, it made her look like she was backpedaling under pressure. People started digging into her past statements, and what they found didn't support her version of the story. In fact, it raised even more questions about whether this was really about policy or just a cheap shot for applause. Then came the real twist. The View, one of the most reliably liberal talk shows on television, actually called her out. That's when everyone realized just how far this had gone. Hosts like Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar, who normally rally behind progressive voices, didn't hesitate to say that Crockett's comments were out of line. Even Sunny Hostin, who had previously gushed over Crockett during a cheerful appearance less than a month earlier, looked visibly disappointed. They all agreed on one thing: mocking someone's disability directly or indirectly is just not okay. What made this moment so striking wasn't just that The View criticized a Democrat, it's that they criticized a Black woman Democrat, which almost never happens on that show. It showed that Crockett's remark wasn't just bad, optics it was so uncomfortable. Even her staunchest ideological allies couldn't ignore it. You could see it in their faces, especially Sunny's, who tried to balance admiration for Crockett's usual boldness with genuine disapproval for what had just happened.
Well, Sean, is another day and another disaster by the Democrats. The reality is they have no vision, no policy. They have nothing to sell but hate. And Americans are not buying it. It's one reason why Texas is going to remain red and why Republicans are going to continue to win elections across the country.
The takeaway was clear. This crossed a line. And when you've lost The View, it's a signal that things are spiraling beyond partisan loyalty. It wasn't just Republicans calling her out, it was everyone. And this is where the hypocrisy angle really kicked in. Conservatives, commentators, and viewers started pointing out what they saw as a major double standard. For years, the left has led the charge on policing language, calling out ableist jokes, and holding public figures accountable for mocking marginalized groups. But now, when one of their own made what sounded like a blatant dig at someone in a wheelchair, the same people were suddenly scrambling to justify it or brush it off. The argument wasn't that people were offended in the usual outrage culture way, it was that the same crowd who demanded apologies and cancellations from others were now making excuses.
I don't know how the Democrats came to appoint Jasmine Crockett as the unquestioned leader of your party, but thank God. And I think what she should do is go on TV twice as much as she is right now, maybe 3 times as much, because every time she appears and makes one of these mistakes, says something radical, it only further divides her party from the rest of the other 80% of America who can't stand this. But the problem is there's an audience for it. I heard Jimmy Kimmel's audience cheering on Tesla vandalism. I hear the Daily Show audience cheering on attacks on Elon Musk. I hear the human rights audience cheering on an attack on a man in a wheelchair. And I realize this is what the left has become, an angry mob of people who are cheering on attacks on a guy in a wheelchair and vandalism against people who bought a Tesla. It's pathetic. No lesson could ever be learned as long as you're doing these things in front of audiences who roar when you do it. When you have comedians who are broad messengers for the left making unfair jokes and people are roaring, when you have politicians being vulgar and saying what's the lesson? What's the audience? It says a lot about the audience.
Brandon Lehman, the host of the video, pointed out that it's not about free speech, it's about consistency. You can't spend years saying that certain jokes are off limits, then suddenly pretend they're okay when it comes from your team. And here's the thing, no one's saying you can't criticize Governor Abbott's policies. In fact, that's completely fair game. But when you start using nicknames like Hot Wheels in the same breath as mocking his leadership, it starts to feel personal. And when people try to rewrite what they said after the fact, it looks even worse. What really made people raise their eyebrows was the reaction from the crowd at that human rights event. When Crockett made the Hot Wheels comment, the audience didn't gasp or cringe, they cheered loudly. That moment said a lot. It wasn't just about what Crockett said, but about how it was received. A room full of progressive activists gathered to talk about equality and justice, laughed and clapped at what many saw as a jab at a man in a wheelchair. To critics, this was the smoking gun. If the same type of comment had come from someone on the right, especially about a Democrat or a marginalized figure, the outrage would have been swift and unforgiving. But here, the reaction was approval. It painted a picture of double standards where offensive jokes are comedy if they're aimed at political opponents, but hate speech if the tables are turned. This moment pulled back the curtain. It wasn't just about Crockett anymore, it was about a culture that cheers on cruelty when it fits their narrative. And instead of owning up to it, many on the left either stayed quiet or defended it. That's what made the backlash even stronger. It didn't just feel wrong, it felt hypocritical. And just when things couldn't get more awkward for Jasmine Crockett, the internet did what it does best: dug up receipts. Turns out, only 4 days before the event, Crockett had retweeted a post that made a similar joke about Governor Abbott rolling up to the White House. That post very clearly referenced his wheelchair. So now, her defense that she wasn't talking about his disability at all started to completely fall apart. People saw it as proof that her explanation wasn't just weak, it was dishonest. You can't publicly amplify jokes about someone's mobility and then claim you weren't thinking about their condition when you used a nickname like Hot Wheels. It gave the impression that she was trying to rewrite the narrative after realizing she went too far and it wasn't a good look. This contradiction made the criticism louder. It wasn't just about one bad comment anymore, it was about a pattern. The retweet made it hard for even neutral observers to give her the benefit of the doubt. It reinforced what critics were saying from the start. This wasn't some misunderstood policy critique, it was a personal jab, and the attempt to cover it up just made it worse. Even more voices joined in the criticism, this time from within, The View, and beyond. Alyssa Farah Griffin, a former Trump administration staffer and now co-host, delivered one of the clearest rebukes. It's never okay to mock someone's disability, whether it's Donald Trump doing it or Jasmine Crockett. She reminded the audience that Governor Abbott's condition is the result of a tragic accident when he was just 26, crushed by a falling tree. Whether you support him politically or not, his disability isn't something to laugh at. And that sentiment hit hard, because it brought the conversation back to a bigger point. This shouldn't be about left or right. There's a basic line of human decency that shouldn't be crossed, no matter who's holding the mic. Alyssa even acknowledged that Crockett has used the Hot Wheels nickname multiple times before. So this wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was part of a repeated pattern, and one that no longer felt like political critique, but personal ridicule. What this moment showed was that trying to fight like Trump doesn't work the same for everyone. When Democrats adopt that abrasive, insult-heavy style, it often backfires, especially when it punches down instead of up. And that's exactly what we're seeing now: Democrats trying to beat Donald Trump at his own game and failing miserably in the process. Crockett's comment, and the backlash that followed, is just the latest example of this strategy blowing up. Her defenders argue that Democrats need to fight harder and be more aggressive. But aggressive without precision, without strategy, just comes off as mean, unpolished, and desperate. Trump built his brand on being bombastic and controversial. Whether you love him or hate him, his insults were often calculated and delivered with a confidence that resonated with his base. But when Democrats like Crockett try the same approach, it doesn't land the same. Instead of looking strong, it looks clumsy. Instead of energizing the base, it embarrasses the party. And worst of all, it gives the other side all the ammunition they need to say, "See, they're no better." This moment has exposed a party that's struggling to find its voice. Rather than offering clear policies or uniting messages, they're taking wild swing straying to mimic the Trump style without the charisma or the media savvy. And every time they try, they end up in a deeper hole, losing credibility with the very voters they're trying to win over. And the irony of it all? Jasmine Crockett made that comment at a human rights conference. A place where you'd expect compassion, inclusion, and thoughtful dialogue, not cheap shots that draw laughter at someone else's expense. Yet when she dropped the Hot Wheels line, the crowd didn't flinch, they roared with approval. And that reaction said everything. To many critics, it confirmed a growing concern that parts of the progressive movement have become more about performance than principle. The same crowd that lectures about empathy and dignity cheered on a joke at the expense of a disabled man. It wasn't just Crockett on stage, it was the audience, the reaction, the environment that embraced the moment instead of questioning it. This moment didn't just reflect poorly on one politician, it was a mirror held up to an entire space that claims to stand for equality, but made an exception for someone they politically oppose. And when that crowd cheers, it teaches the wrong lesson. Instead of learning from mistakes, politicians think they're winning. But in reality, they're exposing the cracks in their own values and giving their opponents every reason to point and say, "Told you so." And if there was any lingering doubt about just how far this had spiraled, Sunny Hostin's reaction sealed it. Just weeks earlier, she was glowing with pride as Jasmine Crockett appeared on The View, praising her as a bold and unapologetic voice. But now, you could see it on her face. Sunny was clearly uncomfortable. She admitted she admired Crockett, even called her an effective messenger, but said flat out, this was a mistake. Sunny went even further. She acknowledged that she hadn't known Abbott was paraplegic, but made a key point Crockett, as a Texas representative, absolutely did. That makes the excuse even harder to swallow. If anyone in Congress knows Greg Abbott's story, it's someone from his own state. So for Crockett to claim ignorance or twist the context, it just didn't add up. And what made Sunny's criticism hit harder was the idea of accountability. She said, if you make a mistake, you should own it, not spin it, not deflect. Just own it. That's how you keep your credibility. But Crockett didn't do that, at least not in a way that felt real. And when even your biggest fans are left shaking their heads, you know you've lost more than just the moment. You've lost trust. And that's really the heart of this whole story when you lose trust. Especially from your own side, it's hard to recover. The fact that even The View, a show that bends over backward to support progressive voices, felt compelled to publicly criticize Crockett speaks volumes. Before this even reached mainstream outrage, the damage was already done. If the most loyal, partisan-leaning hosts on daytime TV are calling it out, it means nearly everyone else had already tuned out or worse, turned against it. This moment didn't just highlight one tasteless comment, it exposed something deeper, the disconnect between the Democratic Party and the people they claim to speak for. Crockett's attempt at humor wasn't bold or edgy, it came off as classless and desperate. And when the loudest cheerleaders in the room suddenly go quiet or reluctantly admit, yeah, that wasn't okay, it reveals how far the party has fallen in terms of standards and consistency. People aren't angry, they're disappointed. Disappointed that someone who should be focused on real issues is instead trying to win applause with recycled Trump-style insults. And disappointed that instead of taking responsibility, it became a game of denial and distraction. In the end, the only thing it proved is that even the loudest voices can lose the room when the message has no integrity. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Also, drop your thoughts in the comments. See you on the next one.